episode 74. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
How's it going, Dave? When you said, "Are you good?" before we recorded, I was expecting a couple more seconds. Caught me off guard. I'm doing good. This is where I do the boring thing and talk about the weather. I have multiple windows open, so you're going to hear crickets, you're going to hear cars, you're going to hear all sorts of stuff in the background, so just be warned.
It's going to be like 70 degrees here today, and then I think it's like 45 tomorrow, and then like 60, and then like 35. So you're going to get a lot
window open recordings from me, at least, over the next couple months. It's been a long winter, especially pandemic-wise, made it even longer of a winter.
Yeah, my basement is like freezing as well, so there's always that going. So,
yeah.
All right, we are Digital Days Gaming. We are a weekly show that posts every Thursday on the podcast services of choice. We live stream Tuesdays about 5 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/Digital Days Gaming, where you are able to subscribe to us. We are a Twitch affiliate, so if you have Amazon Prime linked with your Twitch account, you get a free subscription, or you can use a paid subscription if you choose. Many of the community that listens and watches have done so. Dave from Philly just re-upped his subscription right when we started to go live today. He's on a 3-month streak, so thank you so much for that. So if you're watching, just click the button, see if it's available, and if you're not, like it's like down to like the hour now. Like the other day when I re-upped my subscription, it's like you have 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I'm like, what?
That's crazy.
Yes. It doesn't auto happen. It doesn't happen every 30 days like it would if you did a paid sub. So you do have to check it. So please, if you have the opportunity, take the time to check, and we would appreciate it. As well as just leaving a review on the podcast services that you use. Anything like Podcast Addict, you can use your own stuff. I guess Apple Podcast now has you follow instead of subscribe. So if that follow button's there, like hit that button and maybe leave us a review if you can. There's a lot of you that listen on Apple, a lot. So,
something like 56% of the listeners are on Apple.
If you're able to leave us a review, that is super, super helpful. All the other stuff if you want to be part of the community or hang out with us, is all linked in the show notes. I'm not going to bore you guys with that every single week. Maybe I'll do that like once a month and go a little bit more detail. But we're going to jump right into the news. A little bit of a lighter news week, some confirmations and some cool announcements. So
the first one is a follow-up to last week's story about the PS3, PSP, and Vita digital stores closing. Sony came out and confirmed it. They scared people because over the weekend they quietly killed the loophole that let you use the web page still to access the PlayStation Store for those consoles. They killed that quietly, and there was no word from them until like Monday morning when we finally got the confirmation that the PS3, PSP store are closing July 2nd, and the Vita store will close August 27th. A couple different things. They are still going to allow developers to launch their games on those platforms before the store closes, obviously. There are apparently no chance for people to put their games on sale, like put a discount on it, because apparently that was disabled a long time ago. So don't expect any fire sales before those stores close, which is kind of a shame. PS Plus games attached to your account are still going to be attached to your account after the store closes. And the most important thing, of course, is games, DLC, video content will remain accessible through account management download list. So you'll be able to download all your old games for as long as PSN is still up. But that's where I chime in. I'm saying this is just step one for the ultimate shutdown of PSN.
I don't think the library is ever going to go away. Like I know like the technology maybe isn't there, but like right now I can download a game to my PS5 or to my PS4. I think you can kick a download off on your Vita via the PC. I am not 100% for sure on that.
I think they closed
you can do it. Okay, I don't think you can do it on the PS3. I don't think you've ever been able to do it on the PS3. But I think that for the most part there's going to be something, and I could see the downloads being dramatically reduced, like whatever connections you have to this server being dramatically reduced over time. But I think that if you want, for the foreseeable future, and however long that is, 5 years, 6 years, 12 years, 20 years, I don't know, that you'll be able to turn on your PS3, go into your account, see your games, and download your games. I think that's not going away.
No, not at least for like I would probably put 2 to 3 years on that before that's completely
I think
cut
it's
off.
more. So.
It depends. Like Sony's been.
Well, I guess as a reference, like we had digital titles. We had PS2 digital titles. Yes or no?
What do you mean PS2 digital titles? PS2 classics?
No, like games on PS2 that are digital only, or no?
No. PS2 had very limited.
Was always disc.
Network.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna see if and again, I was gonna see if that was a reference of if you could still go get a PS2 title and download it to your PS2, but I guess that wasn't a thing, so that's my fault. No. And again, it's two companies taking two different directions. Like Xbox is sitting there trying to revitalize and save that library. Some people think it's because of the lack of current gen library. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, or it's just the Phil Spencer's philosophy of like, hey, I want games to be accessible for as long as humanly possible, and he's obviously figuring out a way to do it. It's just I think that this is going to put pressure on Sony to figure something out on the PS5 or PS6 or whatever, to have like we've talked about before, like an emulator tile on your console that lets you play your games.
Yeah, that's going to be the test to see how long they keep the download list active, is if they do integrate backwards compatibility through software on a PS5 or PS6. If that is their intention, then they'll keep that download list on a PS3 alive forever, because that's how you'll pull your previous purchases to a newer console. I don't have faith the way Ryan has just talked about. Like, old games are old. It's a different philosophy, and it's very successful for them. I understand it. It just sucks, especially if they do kill PSN. Even if you have your downloadable games downloaded, they won't work without the PSN authentication, because it needs to ping the clock. And also, wouldn't
that kind of be the same thing for a disc though? So
here's a weird thing. There are watch batteries, CMOS batteries in the consoles. The PS3, you need to replace that so it can keep time with PSN. But if PSN's shut off, then your PS3 is only as good as that watch battery. Sounds like. PS4 is even a little worse. I was reading that PS4, once that battery goes, disc-based games won't even work unless you replace that battery. So there's like different ways of how they handle DRM and stuff. And it's a whole other thing of just like, how long are they going to realistically patch Metal Gear Solid 4 on PS3, so.
Well, and then again, like I'm a data guy, and we've mentioned this over the last couple of weeks. Like, how many people are actually trying to play Metal Gear Solid 4 on the PS3?
Probably more right now, because they are panicking. But Metal Gear Solid 4, I think it was only released on the PS3. It wasn't included in any of the collections, and I believe that game was patched a couple times. So even if you just have the disc, you might have a different playing experience than if you patch it. So PSN does have, or PlayStation does have, a lot of stuff they have to maintain, and they are not like a software company necessarily, like a Microsoft where they have like access to infinite data centers. They have to pay upkeep on those. So the store closing is one way that Sony is going to cut costs. And then it's going to come down to, are they going to then keep up PSN, and then also are they going to keep up like the database that handles all the patches? Like, will they look at the cost of like, someone tried to patch Calling All Cars, or some random game on PSN? How they maintain that is difficult for Sony, because again, Microsoft just, they have data centers, they have all this stuff, they've committed to it, to
I'd be fascinated to see the last PS3 game patch.
It's probably a sports title, because the Vita. So this also led to a couple Vita games getting canceled, because believe it or not, people are still releasing Vita games. This is
the part that sucked. Like him or don't like him, Colin Moriarty has his own Vita studio or game studio, and he's been making a couple games that are pretty good, from my understanding. I haven't had a chance to play them, but his account, I saw like a retweet of something. His account or his company had a Vita title slated to come out like in the fall. And they can't, Like he said it's impossible for them to get it done before the store closes. It just won't work. And he was literally saying that Monday morning that this is where the communication break is just awful between Sony and the developers. First off, I saw a couple weeks ago that his company got a Vita dev kit just sent to them this year, which is weird if they had any intentions of doing this. And then they were working on that Vita title that Monday morning when the news and the dates officially came out. And he's like, well, that game's done.
Yeah, and there was multiple developers that basically over the last 2 days have had to be like, we had to cancel our game, or we're rushing to get it launched before the store closes, which means they're going to have to compromise their vision or their quality to release
and then they can't
game.
patch it.
And then so there's a lot of things that, this just feels like it was out of nowhere. Sony's doing the 90-day thing that they're legally obligated to do, but it would have been nice if they would have looked at the slate of games. But at the same time, they're a big company and they probably looked at it and it's probably 10 games or something. Mm-hmm. Probably lower than a dozen games.
Okay, it's July. What harm would have December have done?
Yeah, if they just look at it, just how they must have looked at the games that are still coming.
Tell the developers to get it out by the end of 2021.
We'll keep the store up for the year and then tell them cut off. And it sounds like the communication was kind of bad for anyone who was still working on a Vita game. And I guess Sony was just well, it's not our responsibility to give you extra time to develop your game because it's a small
this is
thing.
Some of that change that we've seen essentially in the Jim Ryan era of, when, this slowly started happening. A lot of the thing, it seemed like he's just more worried about his exclusives, rightfully so, and his relationship with AAA third party in terms of integrating and I guess I'm going to say caving on crossplay, which they were so against for so long. And now it seems like that they're all on board with it. And just these other things of where it's the left hand's not talking to the right hand of there used to be the early PS4 days. They were the studios, or they were the company that the indie studios, I want to put my game on PlayStation because they're going to work with me. They're going to help me. They've got an initiative to make it to hopefully my game is successful. And then I can't blame the developer or the console manufacturer for my game not being successful. And now 12 years later, it's a complete 180 where I'm sorry, if you don't like this, they just backhanded all of these independent developers that were still making games for the Vita.
Keeping it alive, something they've abandoned years ago. And before anyone complains about us bashing Sony, there's a custom-made PlayStation skateboard that is barely visible on stream. I'm drinking out of a PlayStation cup, for Christ's sakes. I don't know if you can see that. Dave's wearing a PlayStation shirt right now.
There was a substantial change in the mission statement of PlayStation when Layden left and Ryan took over. Mm-hmm. A lot of people left in the Jim Ryan era that were, in my opinion, substantial pillars to the success of the PS4's game library outside of their exclusive studios. Yeah, and it just seems really weird right now.
It was a huge part of what made them on the PS3 era and then early PS4. It's a bad look. It's a bad move. At least they're preserving the download list and we'll be able to access those old games. And it's put me down a nostalgia path because the PS3 was that console in my high school timeline that I spent the most time with.
How long do you think your nostalgia path is going to go though? 3 weeks?
It might last a little bit longer than that just because there are plenty of games that I'm attached to. And I haven't boxed up my PS3. My PS3 is still sitting connected to a TV, and it has never been disconnected. Really, it doesn't get used a lot, but at least twice a year, I'm turning that on to play some old games. How long?
I can't remember the last time I turned my PS4 on to play a game.
But you're very different with the types of games you like and that sort of thing. You're a games with service guy, a sports guy, or not a sports guy as much. And those games you do abandon over time. You know, you're
And
not going to load
I mean,
Division
you're not wrong.
1.
Like maybe I got used to it. Like I'm like, all right, MLB 15 came out, 14 goes over here. Madden 17 comes out, 16 like it doesn't. I mean, I started buying them digitally years ago because like I won't play the older ones anymore, and then I started noticing like the trade or resale value of the prior year's game like went in the toilet, like rightfully so. So I'm like, okay, why do I need a disc? Like at this point in time, like I'm just gonna keep, and then I'll just delete it and not really think about it. And I know that maybe I would say if I call myself the majority, I would say that I'm the 55% and you're like the 45%, and the majority of that is just all right. Like you said, like Destiny 2 came out, all right, bye Destiny 1. Division 2 came out, bye Division 1. You know, and I just move on because there's really no point in going back. Like sure, it's like I could just like with Destiny as an example, I could go back to Destiny 1, or I could just wait for Bungie to put all of it in Destiny 2 like they're doing.
Yeah. Well, I'm the type of person that, like, because we play different things, you said, like, Division 1, you're not going back to Division 1 because Division 2's out and there's a Division expansion, so you're not going to, you know, replay all that stuff. But me, I'm like, oh, no, I want to replay Shatter. I want to replay The Last Sky. I want to replay Everyday Shooter because I have nostalgia for those games. You know, it's like you would probably replay a Zelda game that you've played before because your nostalgia is, like,
yeah,
Zelda.
but I also just get bored. I literally get bored in like 20 or 30 minutes. Like I like Uncharted 2, arguably the best Uncharted in the franchise. I've tried to go back and play it again. I'm like, oh, this is fun. And then 30 minutes later, I'm like, something happens that irritated me or annoys me, and I'm like, why am I doing this? Like,
well, so I get like that with big games. I will agree with you. Like feeling nostalgic for like a game that's like 12 to 15 hours long, I'm like, no, I move on. But when it comes to like smaller games, especially as I get older, I notice I like bite-sized games to where I'm like, you know, I just want to play for something for 20 minutes. Like I have time to kill. I want to play this for 20 minutes. That's where like the PS3 era was so good to me because of all those games being like really small. And I like have a fondness for, you know, Japan Studio, which just closed. Arguably, that is their best era, was that PS3 era. And I just feel
like,
bad.
If I were to boot up Journey again, it would be because I wanted to show somebody something cool.
Yeah, but also like, Journey luckily was remade, so it's on a PS4, therefore you have it on a PS5. But there's a ton of games that didn't get that. And I know some people would be like, oh, you could play The Last Sky and Crash Commando on PlayStation Now on your PS5. Right. And I'm like, no, I don't like streaming games. And PS Now is the weakest of, you know, the services that are out there.
Yeah, Sony needs to do something in like a E3 timeframe of June when they do their like a large state of the game or whatever, and they need to spend 5 or 10 minutes on going like, hey, we understand that you have a desire to play your library, and they need to figure it out. And I don't know what that answer is going to be, but at this point in time, like I don't care. But based on what I've seen on social media the last 10 days since I've been paying more attention to the story, there's enough people that care. You know, and I don't, like we've mentioned before, I don't know, is this an extra $7 a month or $10 a month PS Plus tier that all of a sudden you can now play any of your PS3 games on your PS5 somehow? Like, I think some people would be okay with that.
Yeah. Or my pitch of you want to push people to PS Now, let them just access the games that they already own on PS Now without having to subscribe to a monthly thing for PS Now. Do something. No,
like Curry Masters in the chat. Like Curry, I understand. Like, and I'm not demeaning anybody or saying that you're bad that you play that way. It's just that Sony needs to do something for these people at this point in time because there's obviously enough of them. You know, like there's enough going on in the world, and your competitor, whether you're kicking their ass in console sales or not, your competitor's public perception looks way better than yours right now.
Yeah, and
way better.
And the crazy thing is, no offense to Microsoft and Xbox, their legacy is barely a legacy in terms of like how far back they go, the franchises that are big tier franchises. They have Halo and Gears in terms of like those are their top tier will live forever franchises. Gears is a little arguable, but like Halo is like their top tier will live forever if Xbox closes. Sony has like dozens of those that are just gonna kind of die off, or it's owned by other companies.
You did the tweet the other day, and like Johnny is a boy, a good friend of mine, responded, and he talked about like I think your tweet was like your best PS3 digital only titles or something. I don't remember what you called it. And he like, I forgot about Infamous Festival of the Blood because I played it, I enjoyed it, I liked it because it was a small bite-sized continuation of the Infamous world, and then I did it once and I was done. Or one, I don't even know if it was more than once. Like,
but
I was done with it, and I was okay, and I loved it, and it was great. And I'm so happy that Sucker Punch did that.
But the idea that could just die, like, and just be inaccessible for anybody else to come back, like that is the thing that sucks. Like I talk about games that no one's like really remembers or heard of, but then if I'm like, oh, Shatter's really good, and then I want to show it to someone, if my PS3's dead or if they shut off PSN, Shatter is just a YouTube video I point to, like to say, here's the thing.
I think at this point in time, like I almost feel like you could make a hardware box. Like I mean, I'm just talking out my ass here, but make a box that's the size of an external hard drive that has your quote unquote cell processor in it that you plug into the back of your PS5, and it's $30 or whatever it is, and it just works. That
would be crazy, but yeah, at this point I would fucking line up for that stupid box if I could plug it into my PS5 and then it worked. Just a cell processor breakout
again,
box.
it's just this. Is that gonna ever happen? No, but I mean, at this point in time, if Sony wants to be this greedy hardware company that the perception is that they are, like, make a device. Like, I think if somebody cares enough, they'll pay for it. We all pay enough to external drives. Like I'm going to plug an external drive into my Xbox One or my Series S because I don't want to spend $212 on a memory SSD memory card.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like the emulation is going to be the biggest thing for preservation for PlayStation. Apparently, like it's just they'll leave it in the hands of fans to emulate and then sue them once they realize that people are like pirating games.
Or the emulation that they released was hot garbage on the PS1 Classic or whatever thing was.
Well, yeah, they just used someone else's emulation. They're just like, this is good enough. But it's one of those instances where it's just like they're going to basically leave it up to the emulation community to figure out the PS3. PS3 emulation exists. It's on PC. It's a fucking pain in the ass. To get
just
run.
make a DualSense looking controller that has that like 13-foot red, white, yellow AV cable that you plug into the back of your TV, and all the stuff is just like all the games are just stored in the controller.
And you have to plug in your PSN ID to work with them. Yeah, let's just turn this into like a chaos of extra bullshit. But yeah, it sucks. We'll see how this progresses. I think we're probably like a year or two away from them being like PSN on the original PS3 or on PS3 is gone.
Somebody clip Michael saying that, so in 2 years he can tweet his own thing that he was right.
I'll clip it myself. They're gonna kill it before the 20th anniversary of the PS3, which is going to be in 2026. Because you're not going to celebrate the 20th anniversary by like, hey, we're killing PSN. All your download lists can go fuck themselves. They're going to do it like a year or two before. They have a timeline that they have to hit. So. We'll see how that turns out, but I'm not optimistic. All right, next story, which kind of dives a little into what you were talking about earlier, of like how PlayStation really isn't the indie machine, or they don't have partnerships like they used to. Xbox, they held like a ridiculous Twitch showcase, which was like several hours long. Where they revealed 60 indie games coming to Xbox systems. A good chunk of these are coming to PlayStation and PC and Switch, but these are all coming day one for sure on Xbox, 20 of which are going to be on Game Pass day one, which is huge for indie developers. Sorry, we said Game Pass. This was a crazy thing. I didn't even get to finish it. I ended up just like following.
So a third of what was announced at this Twitch showcase for ID at Xbox, a third is coming to Game Pass
day one. And there's some...
That's crazy. That's nuts.
There's some pretty big stuff in here in terms of like Drinkbox's next game. is going to be in there.
Cool.
Nobody Saves the World is the name of the game. Team 17's Naruto Boy is coming day one. Boyfriend Dungeon, which has been like floating for like I feel like several years in like all the indie showcases. Stalker 2, those are all going to be on Game Pass day one. But there's a ton of things like it's we could go through the list, but you have to see most indie games to get an idea. Just reading the name doesn't do it justice. But I feel like this is a showcase that kind of people talked about for maybe an hour or two after it was out, I felt like. And then because there was so much, no one was really talking about it.
It was like an elaborate B-roll that we would see at press conferences. Mm-hmm. Like this would have been, like 20 games would have been at the PC game show, 20 games would have been at the Xbox press conference, 20 games would have been at the Sony press conference, and it would have been like a 3-minute B-roll at each conference. Like, and now in the age that we're in, you get to see some of this stuff. What I'm most fascinated by is that and I'm trying to word this correctly so people don't get upset at me. What is Xbox offering Drinkbox? Because I'm sorry, Drinkbox doesn't need them.
They're offering them a decent.
Like, Guacamelee is great. Severed was great. Like these games were phenomenal, and like they led with Drinkbox. Like I mean, there was around the advertisement around this event was Drinkbox's new event that the developers of Guacamelee are announcing another game. It's just super fascinating. Like there's obviously something being offered there they don't need them. Like I'm at the point where like I was hesitant when I first saw the top-down view of this game and its RPG style aspect of it, but then just the Drinkbox charm was shining through, and I'm like, you know what? I want to check this out, and I would have bought it, but I don't need to buy it now.
Well, yeah, now you don't need to. I would love, like, no one's ever going to talk about like exactly the incentive. I think Phil Spencer vaguely talked about like every deal in Game Pass is different because they're trying to figure out what best works. It's guaranteed. It's a safety net for Drinkbox, even though they probably don't need that safety net because they have an established audience that will buy their games. But it's just a little bit more of a safety net of just like, hey, guaranteed sales or a guaranteed check for what we think this game will sell, and then probably some incentives once it goes over that number. And then they will bring it to other platforms, and then they're golden, like they guarantee can profit probably from it being on Game Pass.
Well, and I don't want to turn this into this, but like let's just let me ask you a hypothetical question. How much, just if you had to guess, like how much do you think Xbox gave Square to get Outriders? Just guess.
Probably the equivalent to like. I would probably say, like, I don't know what the money account. Do you think it's
like $2 million, $5 million? Like, what do you think?
To me in my head, it's probably like the equivalent of maybe 500,000 sales, maybe something. Probably a couple $1 million for sure.
Right. I mean, and again, it's only coming to Game Pass on console, so that's the $10 a month tier. So, as an example, if Microsoft do you think that Game Pass would get 100,000 new subscribers because of Outriders?
No, but they'll get a Outriders. It's so hard to tell with some of these games.
Right. I'm just using it as an example. If Game Pass got 100,000 new subscribers because of Outriders, let's just say, like that generates Microsoft $1 million a month.
Yeah. Yeah, though your math has been off sometimes. I believe that
100,000 times 10.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's 0. just wait. I'm so used to your numbers being just slightly off that I'm like shell shocked. But yeah, then that would be worth it for Microsoft, and that's worth it for Square, who I know it's not a live games for a live service game scenario for that, but it means they have an established
that's why I'm only
base.
using 1 month. That's why I was only using 1 month. Like, even if you sign up for Game Pass, play Outriders, beat it, and stop.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the part where like, and I'm at the point right now. I think I said this a couple weeks ago. I think Square and Outriders needed Xbox more than Xbox needed Outriders.
Yes, I feel like it was one of those things where Square probably approached Xbox of just like, what would you give us for Outriders day one? And Microsoft wrote a number, and Square, who has a bad track record of having crazy sales expectations. We're like, fuck it, we'll take it. And then everything after this will be gravy, potentially. When it comes to other platforms.
I didn't want to turn this into this, but like from an indie developer, it's interesting. Like, again, Drinkbox being what they are. Like, if I don't even know if Microsoft comes to them and says, "Here's $1 million. Like, put your game on Game Pass forever." And,
and
like that's $1 million like to an independent game developer.
Yeah, to a couple people that probably would expect to make 50 to 100K a year, that they're set for a while. And then if it becomes a hit on Game Pass, you'll get more people to come to it. And then you'll get FOMO for people on other consoles who then will be like, oh, well, I'm just going to buy it because everyone's talking about this game. Yeah. And then
or
now
if it gets like if it gets like the Hades talk, like where Hades came out and then it slowly came up to where like it, like even to the point of where you were talking about it to me, but then over 60, 90 days post launch, I started hearing more and more and more and more and more. And, then it's like, all right, I want it. Okay, I can only get it on Switch, or like, oh, it's on Game Pass. I don't have, okay, like, what, screwed up. We did it. Angela and I did it the other day. I'll talk about it more in what we're planning on watching, but It Takes Two. She's like, I want to play a video game. And she initially wanted to play like Trivial Pursuit or like Uno, and I'm like, hey, well, this co-op game just came out. And she's like, okay. She was tentative about it, but then I was like, I went on the Microsoft store because it was an EA game and it wasn't part of Game Pass. I could get it for $35.99 because I have EA Play through Game Pass now. Or I said, okay, Ange, I go $36 on Xbox, $40 on PS5, and she's like, just get it on PS5 because I don't want to learn a different controller.
But now you have that decision, and you can save money on that stuff and then put that towards buying PS3 games before they go off the store. You could save that $5 and put it to a PS1 Classic.
Right. No, but I mean, it's like the decisions are there, and it's just interesting, like just where all the stuff is coming from, to where like it was like my first initial thought was, at this point in time, like I'm like, oh my gosh, is It Takes Two on Game Pass?
Yeah,
and it wasn't, but it's like that you have to think that way now. And then again, now with these indie developers, like I would assume that I don't really think that Nobody Saves the World is going to be a super taxing game. Like you might be able to play this on your laptop.
Yeah, because I think it is coming to PC and
so if
console.
you could sign up for Game Pass on your for a couple months and play the game and see something else you like on there, like it's a great like entry level thing to get people to check it out.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of cool stuff in there.
Yeah.
I think if you go through the list, like we could link a recap from like a GameSpot or IGN or somebody. But I feel like of the, because I went through some of it, like there's something, if you play video games, there's something in those 60 games announced that would pique your interest.
And a good chunk of them are coming to PlayStation and coming to PC, coming to Switch. So we're not talking about like all these games are exclusive or anything like that. It's just Microsoft did the showcase because no one else really does showcases like this.
You do it all the time. You're like, oh, I'm kind of on the fence about this game. Like, I really want to play it on the Switch. Let me play it on Game Pass first. Oh, cool. I'm enjoying it. Let me buy it on the Switch now, and I'll play it on my way to and from work.
Yeah, that's what I did with Carrion last year. Like, I had Game Pass on PC, tried it, and like, oh, this is great. Let me play it handheld on the Switch, and then I bought it on the Switch.
Right.
That's how this sort of thing works out for developers, is because they get idiots like me who have access to the game, but I'm like, I want to have different access to this game, and
you want it portable, but then you're like, I don't know if it's worth $20 or $30. Okay, Game Pass, download it. All right, I'm having fun. I could see where the portability aspect of this comes from. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how long this works out for Microsoft, because financially, to me, in my head, it doesn't quite make sense, but it does because they're playing the long game.
They just need to release. I need to see it. At this point in time, I want to see the next number. Like, how many subs do you have?
Yeah, because we've gotten like some.
I think last time we heard it was like 17 or 18 million, but it sounds like it's increasing 1 million per month. But we haven't heard anything concrete in about a year now.
Yeah, we've heard developers say it's been very beneficial for them, but we haven't heard how beneficial it's been for Microsoft based on how much money they've put into it, and we'll probably find that out like the next financial call.
The upfront money too, like going back to Drinkbox, where like if Microsoft gave them $1 million, like this means that they can start their next game right away. Like they don't have to wait for success of this game to sell and to be a gem, to be like, okay, like, oh, like they got to kind of sweat it out or whatever. Like they've got a guaranteed cash. Like maybe if it doesn't do well, maybe Microsoft's like, hey, you know what? We're not going to give you another $1 million for this next game. It didn't really drive a lot of business to us. But at the same time, like Drinkbox still got $1 million to make another game. Like,
yeah, they got the financial security that will, fund their next game potentially. Okay. Last story. CD Projekt Red had a flurry of announcements. They recently released patch 1.2. At least that's what I put in the notes.
1.3 or something.
Yeah. Which was delayed like a month or so after they were hacked. It addressed a bunch of issues. It was like a ton of different things that they addressed.
1.2. You wrote it.
Yeah, 1.2. So. The game's still broken in several aspects, but
it sounds like what I heard is like this was they wrapped a bunch of gauze around a bullet wound.
Yeah, they put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound for the old consoles. This did not immediately get this back on the PlayStation Store. This patch did not matter in terms of that, but it did address several things. But CD Projekt Red, they decided that they're going to like shift gears on their development and marketing process.
Shocking.
Yeah. First up, the multiplayer component for 2077 is kind of been canceled. They're going to look into doing something else, maybe with a sequel down the road, not release a standalone multiplayer component.
Wait. They want to release a sequel to this game?
That's something I was going to get into, of just like, that's so cute that they're like potential sequels. They did announce they are working on a new Witcher game, and then they are going to work on other Cyberpunk 2077 projects, sequels, and etc. Though I just think that's just them saving face. Like we still care about the Cyberpunk 2077. I would
at this point in time, I would run away from the Cyberpunk name.
It's because they're still working on it and they want to release the next gen editions of this game, so they have to pretend that they still give a shit about it. And it's funny, like
you can continue to try to fix Cyberpunk 2077 because you should do that to the however 13 million people that bought your game. Like you should do that, and then potentially get another 5 million in sales of like somebody goes, hey, it's not horse shit. But you should not release Cyberpunk 2078. Yeah. Or Cyberpunk whatever. Like you need to stop.
Yeah.
Like you could make another Cyberpunk game, but don't call it Cyberpunk.
Well, there's a couple of reasons why you'd not want to do that. One, you tarnish the name. Two, even if it was bug free, I don't think 2077 was a good game. It felt hollow. The writing didn't do what it needed to do to tell a good story, in my opinion. And then also
sounds like the FPS aspect is not good.
Yeah. The shooting is terrible. So the idea that they were still like, yeah, we're gonna make a multiplayer component of this is like, no. Do you want 2 failures in a row? Like you're not going to dramatically change the shooting. And all the promises they made of this being like a game changer, it wasn't. Outside of the bad news with this game, even the people that said they loved it on PC that had bug-free experiences, even though it wasn't a bug-free experience, they fucking stopped talking about this game 2 weeks after release. Well,
this bullet point you put in here, I'm just reading right now, terrifies me too. They will have shorter marketing campaigns. It will demo all versions of the game. Okay, sorry, I thought this was one paragraph, but okay. That bullet point doesn't terrify me. This one does. In addition, they will roll out yearly roadmaps.
Yes.
Okay, so yearly roadmaps means that you're still going to try to dip into the games as a service thing. You need to go back to your Witcher model.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Is like they said also in this, I didn't put it in the notes, that they are going to focus on single player stuff. It's just like, then you don't need
those don't need roadmaps. Yeah.
Unless you plan to release it broken and incomplete. For Honor,
Destiny, Division, Anthem, Avengers, those games need roadmaps because you're trying to convince the people to like, why am I going to grind my character to level 50 for what? Versus like The Witcher of like, I really haven't played any of the Witchers, and the thing I hear about all the time is like, it's a great character story. Like it's a great storytelling.
They had
why do I want to get to the end of Witcher? Because I want to see what happens in the world. Why do I want to get to the end of air quotes Destiny, Division, For Honor? Oh, because I want to do the harder stuff.
Yeah. You need a roadmap for that. You don't need a roadmap for a single player game other than like, hey, we're going to release an expansion in the fall. know? So that was a weird thing of those like, we'll release yearly roadmaps, and it just makes me think of like, no, you need to focus on completing your game before releasing it. The shorter marketing campaign is just obvious. Though they said they still will...
Don't delay your game and it'll be shorter.
Yeah, or don't show your game off super early, though they already immediately talked about, like, 2022, they're going to start development on Witcher and other Cyberpunk games. And it's just like, don't say that out loud. Like, wait till you have something concrete. And then they're also going to work with their Red engine and reconfigure it and look at the tech, which they basically broke with Cyberpunk 2077. Like, they had a very good engine.
And it's good that they're going to demo all versions of their games. Like, okay, kudos. Like, you're learning. Like, hey, like, I got to play it on PC. I got to play it on console. There's, we all know, like, in 2024, 2025, the PCs are going to be better than the consoles. The gap isn't going to be as significant as it used to be, but it's still going to be better. It's going to be. But you have to continuously upgrade your tech for it to be better. And, whether you like to do that, that's great. But you still need to show it both ways. Like,
yeah, you need to show it on everything and not do the shit they did with the PS4, where they
hide it.
Yeah, or the last gameplay thing when they finally were like, we were revealing gameplay on the PS4 and the PS4 Pro, and they only did dialogue on PS4, and then the action scenes were on the PS4 Pro, and it's like, don't do bullshit like that. That is very... I felt like I was the only people pointing out that they only did that, or they only did still scenes for the PS4, and then when it went to action, they would transition to PS4 Pro. I felt like I was the only one pointing to that, being like, what the fuck is that? Like, why are they doing that? There's a very specific reason they're doing that. They need to be able to demo this stuff properly, and looks like they're going to do that. I mean, they had to eat a lot of crow. Like, Witcher... They can't do this with The Witcher. They can't fuck up The Witcher. Like, that would be devastating. That would be like end of CD Projekt Red if they mess up their marquee one. They are better off just writing a scratch on this as a Cyberpunk as a franchise of like, you know what, we tried to do something else.
Come back in 10 years when you've reestablished yourself.
Do you think
you know what? This is something that we didn't, like in 10 years, that's one more game for them. But yes.
Yeah.
But no, put it aside for a little bit. Let's build up some more good grace. Like maybe, get another Witcher game out there that's solid. It's great. And then maybe do another thing that's not Cyberpunk and then go back.
Yeah. And don't, for the love of God, please do not call the PS5 Series X Cyberpunk 27 Game of the Year Edition or Definitive Edition. Like, please don't do that. Please.
Cyberpunk 2077 PS5, just better.
Yeah. Cyberpunk 2077 rehabbed. Don't put any weird name on it. Modified edition. Something like just release it on those consoles.
Now good.
Yeah. Hopefully PlayStation will put it back on a store, which it's now like over 120 days that it's
Cyberpunk 2077 playable.
Yeah. It's been over 120 days or something since it's been on the store, like on the PlayStation Store, which is crazy. And I want to know.
And I would assume that this 1.2 patch went through certification of Sony.
It had to, yeah.
And it's Sony still said no.
Yeah. Sony was probably like, we'll see what the next patch is, because they said they're only doing 2 major patches for the old versions of the game. So they have one more patch to get this back on the store. But here's the question, Dave. If you're Sony and Cyberpunk or CD Projekt Red submits the PS5 Cyberpunk 2077, do you allow that on your store knowing that you already blocked the previous gen version?
I at this point in time, if it passes certification, I don't see why not.
Okay.
If it passes Sony certification on PS5, I don't see why not. Although the PS4 version passes certification, allegedly.
Yeah. So. Well, they signed that waiver of we promised to fix the thousands of issues with our day one patch. Yeah. I don't know if Sony allows it on the PS5, knowing that it's
I think that would dependent on if the PS4 version is to the point where Sony's comfortable enough to put it on the store. If the PS4 version ends up on the store, the PS5 version ends up on the store. You won't see the PS5 version before the PS4 version, I don't think.
No, they would have to make sure, and they wouldn't probably launch them at the same time either.
Nor should Cyberpunk release a next-gen version of their game without the prior gen version working correctly. Like that's not a good idea.
Which is why I kind of didn't like the messaging that they put out, where they're talking about, let's talk about the future and our future games, and it's
fix your shit right now.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's where there was like a disconnect of like, why the fuck?
Well, we didn't talk about it either, and I thought you were going to talk about it, but like this is like I'm getting like Dying Light feeling to it, where Dying Light released a video going, hey, like we know you want our game and it's coming this year, but you just need to be patient, and that was the video.
Yeah, where like, I think they even said development hell. Like we're not in development hell. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
It's a strange situation that Cyberpunk has found itself in. But yeah, I just felt there was like a disconnect of them being like, oh, we're going to work on a Witcher game. We're going to work on sequels. And it's like, no, you're still, you're not on the biggest platform for consoles still. Like,
right. So I'm fascinated by this new bold print on our document of you have a new segment.
Yeah. Since I still feel that this is going to be a bad year for gaming in terms of delays, I just put a what's delayed segment in our podcast. And
we do like some fancy bumper for this one or something.
Yeah. If we want to get real fancy, just do the sad trombone sound. Back for Blood has been delayed from June to October. So not a crazy delay.
I think I called this one too.
I know you did. You did call this one. We should sound clip that one. So we got Gotham Knights, I think, was delayed last week, and then now Back for Blood this week. Who knows what's going to be delayed next? Sony did the smart thing where they didn't put any dates on their stuff. They just put years, so they could probably like get away with like, we never officially said for some of their games.
So did Gotham Knights.
Yeah. So my next prediction for delays is going to probably be God of War, because I think they put 2021 originally.
I still think Ratchet's going to get a month or 6 weeks.
You think Ratchet's
going to get some type of it's going to get some type of production delay. Like, because I don't want it. I want to play it in June. But Sony's known for these 4 to 6 week production delays.
Yeah, that's the good thing about Sony is like when they see like you need a couple weeks, fuck it, let's give you guys a couple weeks. So. Mm-hmm. Back for Blood is officially delayed. We'll see what gets delayed next week. Probably we'll have to add a section of which Vita game was canceled this week as that starts to happen. But yeah, that's it for news. What's delayed will be a feature for the rest of this year, because I think we're going to get a bunch of delays over the next couple months.
I'm talking about like reducing the size of the show sometimes, and Michael's like, new segment. Yeah, it's a 2-minute talk. It's fine. Yeah. It's a news story that now it's just a funny thing. What's delayed? 2021 watch.
Yeah, like my Uncharted movie watch, sort of.
So yeah, we've got tangible things. The Uncharted movie, Cyberpunk at least once a month now.
I didn't talk about it, but like a month ago, Tom Holland said he was disappointed with his acting in the Uncharted movie that hasn't released yet. I can't wait for that movie.
Man.
He said he approached the character the wrong way. I'm just like, fantastic. This movie's not out yet.
All right. So what we're planning on watching. So for me, watching Owen wanted to watch Transformers movies, and he only really watched like 20 minutes of it at a time. So we watched, I forgot that I owned it. Angela went and found it. We downloaded it digitally. Transformers The Last Night. And that was like the first Transformers movie that we watched on the new TV with the new soundbar and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was actually pretty impressed with like HDR and the sounds. Like it was really kind of cool. I was like, oh, this kind of makes me want to check out some more, like 4K versions of movies. Cause
that's why I got
the
first
4K, this is the first 4K, television I've had. And I'm very happy with it. And then the soundbar, I was like, wow, like kind of putting up at like 25 or 30. And I was like, you can really hear like all the nuances of the Transformers noises, which was really kind of cool to hear. He only watched it in like 20-minute increments when Transformers were on the screen. And then he watched it at the end when there was that big fight going on. He's like, can we watch another one? I'm like, we just watched a 2.5-hour movie and you watched like 25 minutes of it. And you went off and did other things that a 5-year-old does. And then I started this week on a whim, just because I've been watching a little bit of Superman and Lois, and like I said, it kind of takes place in the Smallville universe. It does take place in the Smallville universe. I went and first decided to start watching the Smallville series. It's on Hulu.
I've been wanting to, but it's so hard with Chloe being like a real life criminal. Like, it's hard to go back to that show.
Oh yeah, there's a couple things. My wife's like, well, that guy, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah,
It's just like, she seems to think that I've watched some of it before, and I don't feel like I have, or she's watched it. What's interesting is the things that I find. It's from 2001, so like I know it's like a 20-year-old show. Okay, Kryptonite is everywhere in the first season.
That was the kind of the joke, because it was like Kryptonite Monster of the Week. Like every week there's like Kryptonite.
Yeah,
did
and that's
something
exactly
else.
what it is. He doesn't really do anything to anybody. They kind of like end up like dying due to circumstances that he's involved in.
That whole show felt like it was like Superman meets kind of Buffy Monster of the Week mixed with Scooby-Doo, where it's like the villain
the great part is like she watched an episode with me the other day. It was like on in the background, and she didn't seem to there was a couple things that she'd see something and she'd ask a question, I could answer it like in 5 seconds. And it wasn't a diatribe of like, oh, this happened last episode and this happened the one before and this happened the one before. There's no overarching storyline to it. So like there's just it's nice because it's 40-minute commercial free on Hulu, and I can just I could just watch it. I was off yesterday, I was off today. It's just easy just to sit and watch. I think I'm like 6 episodes in. I'm not hating it, but I'm not loving it, and I'm also it's kind of relaxing to play. I'm not like I'm watching another one just because, and not watching another one because like, oh, like what happens next? Like they're all like in, like you said, like that's a great term, like villain of the week, monster of the monster of the week, monster of the episode, and each episode has a beginning, middle, and an end. There is a very small like story hump, but there's no overarching storyline.
They get into that later seasons when they start adding other characters. Did you get to the?
I'm sure it's coming.
Yeah. So. Did you get to the episode where he learns or he discovers he has laser eyes?
No. The last one I finished was the old lady that could tell the future.
Okay. Yeah.
And the like the X-ray vision one, like it kind of each episode kind of focuses on like a new ability that he's learning, and I feel like Angela has no interest in watching this, but I feel like this is exactly what she was wanting, was a character development that didn't have a huge mix of superheroes in it. And she's like, yeah, I don't want to watch that. I'm like, all right, whatever.
Yeah, Smallville was really good the first couple seasons, and then the later seasons are still okay, but it definitely is one of my favorite shows. I haven't been able to go back to it because of the actress that did horrible things. It's just like but what have you been playing?
I'm really good at just separating those things. Like I can, and I know not most people aren't, and I honestly don't even know what you're talking about.
I'm not going to tell you.
Nor do I probably want to know at this point. But I'm just like. Maybe that's just the sports thing in me of like, oh, this, again, I'm not going to go off on a huge tangent. Like that guy's a drunk driver and he did terrible things and he can still play. Like, I don't know if I'm just like, all right, whatever. Like this is just business. So, but for me, I'm like Superman story. I've been super interested in the Superman thing. I don't know if Smallville is going to be the one that's going to tell me all this stuff, but I can't do comics. So
yeah,
I don't want to read.
I think it's the best Lex Luthor
I can read
that's ever been on film and television. That Lex Luthor is my favorite Lex Luthor.
Mm-hmm. So playing, I just dabbled in Destiny, played with a bunch of friends of mine on Xbox, got a bunch of Grandmaster stuff done, 3, 4, 5 of those that, hard content that I can do with the light level that I'm at. And just, it's kind of fun just to grind something out for a little bit and just, again, lose your mind in that. But, that's solid still. And then, It Takes Two. So that started again on a whim. Angela and I played that. I streamed it. We've played twice, 2 nights, about 2 hours, 2.5 hours each night. That game is telling a very interesting story. This is the same developer that did A Way Out.
It's about divorce, isn't it?
At the beginning of it, yeah. I mean, I think I can see like where this is going to go. Yeah. But the funny part is like, I agree with you. I think it's a couples game, and I think it would be great for there's a lot of complicated things in this game. Like this is not the co-op game where one player can carry the other player, like at all. Like, and my wife does not play video games very well. She's doing really, really good with this considering, but there was a point in time where she picks up a hammer, a head of a hammer. And then I have to throw nails in situations for her to progress through an area where she has to jump and hook the hammerhead on. So sometimes she has to double jump and dash, and then hit R1 to hook the hammer on, and then the swinging thing, like you're swinging from a rope, and you have to like time your jump to hook onto the next nail. Like this is not something that's like super easy. I think only twice I had to take the controller from her. But it's definitely not one of these things where if you think that this is a game that you would want to play with your significant other that doesn't play video games, like you got to kind of be ready for a little bit of a learning curve. She's getting better every time. Mm-hmm. And it takes her 14 times to jump, but the 0 to 14 to progress that one area, she gets better each of the times up to 14.
Thank God Dave is a very patient person.
And to the point where she's in, like she seems to be enjoying the game. She wanted to pick up the PS5 camera at Best Buy today so we can play on the couch and we can put her on camera so you can see her try to jump and move the controller to move the character farther. But yeah, $40, I think it's a great game. I would love to, like, after I beat it with Angela, because we will beat it. I would love to. I think you can do a friend trial thing, like where you, like, somebody that doesn't own the game, because I own the game, can play it, and it has online and local, so very cool. Very beautiful looking. There's as you're progressing through the story of I'm getting a little bit of like Honey, I Shrunk the Kid vibes to it, because you're doing a lot of wilderness stuff. But the environments are awesome looking. There's like a level with jellyfish, and the lighting and the animation was like really good, really cool, and very happy with the game so far. And there is a learning curve to it. We're on a boss battle, and she's she's definitely not a video game player, because she's like, all right, I'm tired. Like she's like my hands are hurting, my eyes are hurting, I'm tired, and I'm like, all right, well, we can stop. So, but then I can see it, like the wheels turning in her head, where she's like, I don't want to stop, I want to beat this, but I'm tired. Yeah. So she's getting that desire. So hopefully this kind of is like a good entry point for her to try some other stuff, other games. Like we tried A Way Out, and I think that just might be a little bit too realistic for her, which is why I think like It Takes Two is working really well. But for the most part, that was the weekend, or the week for me. It was playing. That's what we were playing and watching. So.
Okay, for me, it's been mostly just 3 games. First game is Tony Hawk. They just released the PS5 upgrade for that game. I got sad because my TV doesn't do 120 frames per second, so the game immediately was like, you're in fidelity mode. Sorry, we can't switch you out of fidelity mode. So I'm just playing in 4K 60 frames. The game does look better, but it's not as noticeable as some other upgrades have, because the game already looked good before. The only noticeable difference that I've seen was loading times, and the lighting is better. Like the lighting seems way more dynamic than it did on the PS4. So I just played that a little bit. They did mess with the controls a little bit in terms of adding DualSense haptic feedback, and then the adaptive triggers, which I turned off the adaptive triggers just because I didn't need that extra tension when I'm like switching the board. Well,
I think a game that you've been playing for as long as you've been playing like that, a change like that could be irritating and annoying.
Yeah, like it's not a crazy amount, but like there's an extra click when you're trying to switch the board. Luckily,
it's like competitive shooters turning Rumble off. Like there's really no difference.
Yeah, so it was one of those things where it's just like it was just enough of a slight annoyance that I was like, all right, I'm turning that off. I enjoyed it. I just like it does the same thing that every PS4 to PS5 thing does, where you have to load the PS4 game and upload your save, and then download the PS5 one, and then download your save from the game.
I think that I know we briefly talked about, but people just pwned like, "Oh, smart delivery is just a fancy marketing term. Every console is going to do that." Okay.
Yep. Nope. So I had to do that. It wasn't too bad. I had to do it twice though, because my trophies didn't pop the first time, because apparently there was a bug. So the first time I did it, my trophies didn't pop automatically. So then I had to delete my save data, and then go back into the PS4 version of the game, upload it, and then go back, download it, and then my trophies popped.
I will give Sony some credit on something. So I bought It Takes Two. I think the only way I could buy it was PS4 to PS5, you know, and then it was both versions were there after I purchased it, and then I went over to hover over to click on the PS5 version to download it. My wife's like, no, wait, it just says if you just click download, it'll download your PS5 version. So it's getting better.
Yes.
That it knows that I don't have a PS4 version. It happened to a buddy of mine on Destiny, Bleak. Bleak Harvest, he messaged me. He's like, are you having performance issues on Destiny? I'm like, no. I go, did you get the patch? Did you get a clean patch? And he's like, yeah, I think so. And then he inadvertently went into the PS4 version of his game. He hadn't deleted it off when he upgraded to the PS5, or when he had to, I don't know if he had to like move something around, and I don't know why. I didn't get a chance to ask him, but he had both versions of the game on there, and he loaded up the PS4 version of the game, and he's like, what?
Yeah. I was glad the PS5 Tony Hawk is a couple gigs smaller than the PS4 Tony Hawk. So I'm glad to see developers are learning how to
Call of Duty as well. We saw this week that they're shrinking the size of
Warzone
the
and
battle royale. Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. So I got to clear out some hard drive space just because I'm getting real close. Both on my external, which is only PS4 games, and my internal for PS5 games, they both have less than 100 gigs on each one. So I'm starting to hit that tipping point where it's like, Avengers, this isn't hitting as much as I thought it would, to where I might just delete Avengers because I'm going to have to make cuts.
Yeah. Tyler jumped in the stream the other day. I was talking about Avengers. I'm like, okay. Like I need to, but I don't want to, but I want to.
I jumped in Avengers again, and I just had the problem where I'm just like, okay, there's a good single player story in here, but they also develop the levels for multiple people, and it just doesn't do.
It hurts. Like when you're playing something that you should have at least one other person with you. Like the game doesn't scale well.
Yeah, and it's not even to scale. Just some of the levels are just open because they expect there to be multiple people fucking around. So I'm just trying to like play this as linear as I can, and I'm just like, I'm missing stuff. I know back there.
Well, then I saw that they added another suit to Miles Morales, and I'm like, that looks really cool. I'm like, do I want to go back?
Yeah, I'm saving my New Game Plus playthrough of that for like another couple months, but I'll probably have to delete that for space. That's my next sacrifice for space.
That sucks.
Yeah,
especially again for people like you that you have a data cap. So like those are real decisions. Like even having a Game Pass subscription, those are still decisions. Like
I have 2 days left on my data cap, and I got the message yesterday that I'm 95% at my cap.
Oh gosh.
So I'm just over a terabyte.
We did a data cap for like 2 weeks. I'm like, you know what? I can't handle this. I can't like forget or pass out watching ESPN and then worry about it the next morning.
Yeah. Like, and it's the only thing that fucked my data cap this month. Usually I only hit 50%, but Game Pass just fucking wrecked my data cap this month. So then, because I've been in that retro gaming thing with the PS3, I ended up downloading Super Stardust Ultra, which is the remaster that they put out on PS4 for it. And I'm basically going through my stuff of like, okay, what remasters hit the PS4? So I like downloaded Flower, and I downloaded Super Stardust HD, or Super Stardust Ultra. I think they dropped the HD.
And you're doing this to essentially protect your PS3 game library. You're like, I don't need the PS3 version if I have a PS4 version, is your feeling.
Yes, exactly. So I'm just like deleting stuff, trimming stuff where I can, just so I can keep it as simple as possible, because I do plan to probably drop like $100 on the PS3 store over the next couple months to just get some of those PS1, PS2 classics that are ridiculously overpriced for physical copies. Like that are $5 on the PlayStation Store, and they're $500 on eBay.
Yeah.
Which that's going to fuck up that market.
People love that physical media. That's going to make that stuff go even higher now that you can't get it digitally.
Which is why now I feel more incentivized, because the PSP and the Vita are really good PS1 machines. Like, those are really good ways
maybe in the back end, this closure will be good, and all of a sudden the developer's going to be like, hey, due to the PS3 closure, we increased our revenue enough to start developing another game.
Yeah, like, maybe we should do this more. So I'm probably going to put a lot of money in the PlayStation Store. And Super Stardust, I was just playing that just because it's a pretty game, and I don't remember playing the remastered one too much, so I just wanted to see how it ran and looked on the PS5.
Does that have, like, 4K stuff?
No, not at all. I don't think. But it's just it looks better on my TV.
I know they did a whole bunch of stuff on the Pro. Like even when the PS4 Pro came out, they started saying like upscale, you know, so.
Yeah, I don't know if that came out too soon for that. But it was just nice because last time I played that game, it was on a 32-inch 1080p TV, and now I'm playing it on like a 55 4K TV. So it's just like, this looks so much better, and it loads just a little bit faster. The main thing I've been playing outside of my shameful NBA 2K playing is RetroMania Wrestling. So this is a indie wrestling game that came out a couple weeks ago, though the console release has been kind of staggered due to like certification things. It came out on Xbox 2 weeks ago. I think it came out on the Switch this week, and then I think the PlayStation releases in like the next couple weeks as it goes through certification. So this is a retro wrestling game similar to the WrestleMania Royal Rumble arcade games from like the early 90s. So pixelated, very simple moveset. You have like a weak, medium, and heavy attack, and the grappling is simplified. So it fills that void that the WWE games just abandoned several years ago, like a decade ago, of simple wrestling games. This is very straightforward. Can be a little difficult if you're doing multi-man matches against the AI. It's got a nice pixelated art style. They've partnered with NWA, which is still going to this day. Billy Corgan of Smashing Pumpkins runs that, which is always just a fun thing to mention. The roster, they did get like a very eclectic roster. It's not a lot of people. I think it's 12 to 16 wrestlers. So you have the Legion of Doom, you have Austin Idol, Nikolai Koloff, you have stuff like Tommy Dreamer, John Morrison, weird stuff like Blue Meanie, Stevie Richards. So like it's a super out there roster in terms of like, here's your 90s nostalgia, here's your weird mid 90s 2000s stuff, and then also here's modern wrestlers like Zack Sabre Jr. and Matt Cardona, Brian Myers, the current NWA champion Nick Aldis. So it kind of has a little bit of everything in terms of roster. They already announced like with DLC that they're gonna have, which again is like some retro, some new people. So they have like post-launch plans, and it's really fun. They have a story mode where you play as like John Morrison, and you basically, your body's pretty beaten up and you're just trying to like reestablish your career, which is funny because John Morrison, when this game was announced, was in the independent scene, and now he's with WWE again. So it's just like that weird thing of like, here's some WWE talent in this game. So that to me is kind of interesting, of just like, I wonder if there was like a little bit of a panic, like, oh shit, can we even use him anymore? Because now he's with like a company that has their own wrestling game. How
much was it?
It was like $26. So it is kind of expensive for like a retro game, but 16 wrestlers, a bunch of different match types. It's pretty fun. Story's pretty...
Seems a little fleshed out. I mean...
Yeah, it's definitely fleshed out. There's like some skill to the gameplay, but it's easy to pick up for anybody, especially they're mimicking that like 90s arcade style. I think everyone has been to like a Chuck E. Cheese or a pizza place in the early 90s and seen WrestleMania or Royal Rumble on an arcade machine. There's a ton of like little animation things. They do a good job of capturing like the wrestlers' move sets. I was really impressed with this, and played the hell out of it. There's a story mode, pretty short, and then there's like a 10 pounds of gold mode, which is like a remember in Mortal Kombat where you're like moving up the tree to get to like the final boss. 10 pounds of gold is basically that. You're working your way up to get to the NWA championship. That's pretty fun. It does suffer the same thing that some video game wrestling games have, where multi-man matches are a little annoying because AI is just always going to break up pins and stuff. But the one-on-one tag team match stuff is really fun, and they had some good ideas on how to elevate the retro video game genre. So I'm really enjoying playing that. I hope they add a bunch more characters. They have 3 characters announced that are pretty interesting. It's like Mr. Hughes, Chris Bay, James Storm. So like 2 modern, 1 retro. So I'm hoping they keep it going. And
what's it called again?
RetroMania Wrestling. I believe it's coming to PlayStation in a couple weeks. I ended up picking up on Xbox because I got impatient. I was originally going to pick it up on PlayStation, but again, they had like some certification process. It's also out on Steam as well. I'm curious to know how much the DLC characters are going to cost because I already put down like $26 for this.
Right.
I don't know how much more money I'd want to put in for 3 characters unless they're like really reasonably priced.
Well, that or if they had add some additional story content or some new game modes. Like,
Yeah.
I think that you can't just be like, oh, here's a character pack. Like, I mean, I guess maybe you could, but I feel like that they, if they're charging, I don't even know, like $10 seems a little excessive for me just for like $3 a character.
Yes, yeah, that's like, my concern. If it's going to be too expensive, how much am I really going to want to dive into this game? Because I've already gone through the story like twice. I've already gone through that, but it fills a void that was nice to see. Especially we haven't had a good wrestling game in a while, and this is pretty good. That's it for me for playing, and haven't really watched anything.
I forgot. So I watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
I did too. I'm enjoying it, but I'm not super into it like WandaVision.
Yeah, and then Mighty Ducks Game Changers, which springboarded us into a Patreon episode that we did, which is our spotlight for this week. So if you're a member of the $7 tier of Patreon, we did a deep dive, about an hour, just into the Mighty Ducks movie television franchise. So that was a lot of fun to record. That's on the Patreon feed now. So if you're part of that $7 tier that's there. And again, signing up for that $7 tier gets you access to all the previous episodes that you can listen to that we recorded. It's almost like, I think it's like 9 or 10 of them going back to like May or June that we recorded. And so if you're one of those people that's on that tier, thank you again for being on that tier. And if you're one of those people that's on that tier that maybe doesn't pay attention, there's some pretty cool content for you to listen to.
For sure.
That would be, I think, entertaining to fill the void. Like, I know, like, a lot of people have told me, like, oh, like, my commute has changed and I don't listen to as much stuff as I used to. Like, I get it. But, maybe, you're commuting just maybe once a week now. Like, I don't know. Hybrid stuff. We'll see.
Yeah, just download it. Just have it. Just, just available.
But so I'm kind of feeling the same way you are about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm just super interested in those characters in general, so that's kind of why I want to keep watching the show. But it does need to kind of like pick the pace up a little bit.
And there's not many episodes, so it's worrying me of just like, okay, you already burned through like 1/3 of.
You're a third of the way through. Yeah, you got some stuff to work out here.
Like they just got to like the
Isaiah character. That's really all I'm gonna say. Is like seem to be like there's a lot of my friends that are like really like, wow. I hope this isn't just a cameo style thing.
Yeah, and like they finally in episode 2 kind of like amp up the sexual tension between Falcon and Winter Soldier, and I really need that to like elevate itself just a little bit, just because like that's like to me like that's what I'm watching for. So like I'm hoping they dive more into that stuff. And I know some people are like, what the fuck are you talking about? And like you know.
All right, so you can send us questions or comments using hashtag AskDigitalDays. You can post them in Discord. You can post them in the Facebook group. You can post them on Twitter. You can send them us in an email, podcast@digitaldaysgaming.com. So Todd Hampton writes, what is the one game that you had been eagerly awaiting to play, but then it turned out to be a failure in your opinion?
Cyberpunk 2077. That was pretty big. I would have to go back to.
But I think you kind of saw the writing on the wall like over time. Like your expectation from announcement to delay to the delay to the delay to the launch was like, all right, I'm scared. Like
yes, you can. That's a great thing about this podcast is you can like map out like the decline,
the time capsule.
Yeah, the decline of enthusiasm I had for that game, but it's still massive disappointment because I was getting worried that it was going to be like a disappointment. I didn't expect it to be a train wreck, and that's what we got. Other than that, the only other thing I can think of is Killzone 3. Everyone that's like known me for more than like a decade knows that I put thousands of hours into Killzone 2, and Killzone 3's multiplayer just did nothing for me, and the single player campaign did nothing for me, and it just kind of a bummer how that ended up. And then I never even bothered Shadowfall. That's how bad Killzone 3 was for me, where I just I'm not even going to bother with Shadowfall.
I mean, the first one that came to mind when I saw this question, and I guess it can kind of be a cop-out, but it was Anthem. Just because a lot of people were like, BioWare is going to be able to tell a great story, and the mechanics and the like a Mass Effect style in a games as a service, so it would be great. And I was like, but I also saw the writing on the wall too. Like, there was people that I trusted that were asking like the correct questions, and BioWare was like dodging them, and I'm like, what the like, so I but at the same time I was like, you know what, even if this is just a good story and that's it, I could be up for it. And it wasn't even that.
Nope.
So like that, and disagreed with the prior staff that I had to it, of what I thought was what I thought was wrong with it, what I thought was continued to be wrong with it, and everybody's like, yeah, but you can do this. I'm like, I don't care. Yeah.
Like, I don't know how many times I've heard the flying is really fun, and being like, okay, yeah, like,
yeah. I mean, I think some people would expect me to maybe say like the launch of Destiny 2, but I was okay with the direction they went with it either way. But I was never disappointed with it. I didn't like the direction they went with it, but I wasn't like, oh, this, it's still a gameplay at its core was still great. Yeah, there's really nothing else that I feel like I've just been vastly disappointed in. I guess, in terms of recently in my mind, like Link's Awakening on that DS port to Switch, like I just need to send it back to gameplay now. I'm not going to finish it.
Yeah. So
I'm just going to like move on to like Luigi's Mansion 3 and just hopefully not be disappointed by that. So thanks, Todd, for that question. Matt Lowe sends one in. He says, what's your favorite original soundtrack in a game? No Man's Skies appears on my Spotify quite a bit.
Okay. So classic soundtracks, I'm going to go Shatter, because PS3 games. Hotline Miami has a fantastic soundtrack. Journey is a amazing soundtrack. And to go really old, Jet Set Radio Future, fantastic, weird soundtracks. Like, those are four that stuck out right away. Then if you go more recent stuff, Earth Night is a really good chiptune soundtrack from a game that came out 2 years ago, last year? I forget exactly when. And then something that I just bought on vinyl or pre-ordered, Paradise Killer. I reviewed that game for this podcast last year, and even though I was a little disappointed with how the game turned out, I loved the soundtrack. It's like 80s synth with some vaporware mixed in with it. It's just a super, super good soundtrack. And River City Girls also is an amazing video game soundtrack that I listen to frequently. Like, Paradise Killer, Earth Night, and River City Girls are downloaded to my phone, and when I'm at work before my coworkers get in, I'm usually blasting those soundtracks, and then they come in and ask me what I'm listening to. So those are my like go-to current ones.
Well, I'm glad you listed a bunch, because I'm gonna have to essentially abstain from this, because like I hear music in games, but I don't have any soundtracks. I need to listen to music more, because I've noticed that some music that I've been listening to, I messed around with the streams a couple months ago where I was listening to even some copyright-free music and just having music on as a background functionality. It was really kind of like relaxing for me. So I think I need to try to delve into music a little bit. Ironically, listening to Smallville sometimes, like the songs like in the show, I'm like, okay, that's not bad.
You get that nostalgic soundtrack of Smallville.
Yeah. So, like, and it kind of like piquing my interest a little bit, but music is not in a good enough spot in my rotation. It should be, it's like at a 0 in my rotation. And it needs to be better, because I think I need to be more on purpose of like, I have a 20-minute car ride, 25-minute car ride, I need to listen to something instead of like defaulting to like sports radio or an audiobook or a podcast. And lately it's been the latter of sports radio, just because, again, it's on. Boring. I turn the car on, it's on, they're talking about something, and it's just chatter. When I was growing up as a kid, my parents listened to talk radio to go to sleep.
Yeah, Dave actually
and
grew up in the town from Footloose, where music was banned. So that's why Dave
and
doesn't.
music was not substantial in my parents' library either. Allegedly, my dad is tone deaf. I think that's bullshit. But so that's where like music wasn't like a thing. So I have been wanting to try to incorporate music into. I need to just download Spotify. Like Angela, Jonathan, and Zoe, they all have like tremendous. Like we have the Spotify Premium, like all that stuff, and I'm just like, all right, that's cool. Like I just don't do it, and I need to just to mix it up a little
Curry
bit,
Master brought up the Last of Us soundtrack. It's really good. I bought the vinyl records. You can't see them in the background, but I bought 2 vinyl records of the Last of Us soundtrack. I put it on and listened to it, and then like cleaned the apartment. And fuck, that music is too unnerving. Like it's a great soundtrack, but I can't listen to it because it's just like I just think of all the like messed up stuff you have to do in that game. So like I get like a weird vibe when I listen to the Last of Us soundtrack, which is a compliment of that soundtrack because it's doing what it needs to do and it complements the game. But the Last of Us soundtrack is really good, but man, listening to it, I was just uneasy the entire time.
Yeah, there's a guy I became friends with on Facebook recently through like I've known him for a long time. He's followed me on Twitter. I followed him on Twitter. Chris Volick. He posts on Facebook all the time what he's listening to, and like it's like he just like the album screenshots that they just share, and the diversity he has in some of his music is just fascinating to me. And I couldn't even really tell you what kind of music I like or don't like. Like, I mean, Angela could probably give you an idea of stuff that like she's like heard me listen to or that I get some type of like connection with, but I need to do a better job of realizing the mental effects, the positive effects that it can have on me. And I think it would tremendously help me in a lot of, like you mentioned, like bored downtimes. But I just don't do it. So yeah. I don't have a logical reason for it. So, but all right. Thank you guys so much for sending the questions. Like again, you can use hashtag AskDigitalDays. You can send them to us on through the socials. You can follow the main account at DigitalDaysPod. You can follow Michael at the first MJC 1ST. You can follow myself at Good Dave Hunt. Facebook group, Discord channel, that's all linked in the show notes. If you're watching on Twitch, please remember to follow if you haven't followed already. Or the number of viewers are some bots that I don't recognize names, but I see some names in there regularly that maybe aren't following, so you should follow. It's free. Just click the button. And while you're there, click that subscribe button and see if you have one. That would be appreciated. Then you can also do... you can like listen to the show, subscribe, follow the show on your podcast services, leave a review if possible. And then again, just a quick plug, patreon.com/digitaldaysgaming. There's a bunch of tiers in there, like we mentioned, for the bonus episode. You can get this show 24 hours early if that matters to you. Discord access and the tip jar. The $1 tip jar essentially pays for a month of podcast hosting. So if you're willing to do that, that's also appreciated and helpful. But other than that, you got anything else?
No, just hoping to flood the feeds with some random special episodes over the next couple weeks as I get motivated to record some extra stuff.
Yeah, so again, follow Twitch. More It Takes Two with Angela and I. Looks like we're going to be using a PS4, PS5 camera, so you can see her try to think her controller is a motion controller. That's, always interesting. You can also probably just see our dog like just lay across us and see how massively, space he tries to take up on the couch, and see the living room that we've been working on for forever.
That's really why you got the cameras. It's like, I need people to see this room.
I'm not even the one that wanted to purchase it. I'm like, you can use it for streaming. She's like, yeah, but we've already streamed like 2 things. I'm like, okay. Like and then Outriders is this week as well. So I will be playing it, and if I'm playing it, I'll stream it if that's something you guys want to check out. It's cross-play, so if you are getting Outriders on whatever platform you want, I'll make a Discord voice channel on our Discord for it, and we can just jump in and play the game together. Hopefully Michael messes with it just a little bit since it's on Game Pass.
Yeah, I'll probably download it once my.
It'll be after his data cap.
Yeah,
so it should be okay.
I can download it starting Thursday.
Yeah, so again, play the demo. If you haven't played the demo yet, your progress carries over, so get through that first part so you can just jump right into the co-op part. So, and then if I'll just be in the voice channel, I won't lock it or do anything like that. So please be decent people, and I'll just allow you to join the voice chat if you want, and I'll literally just label it like Outriders. And if we need to have more than one, I'll just make another one. It's easy. So if you're considering it, just let us know, and come hang out, play. Just it's cross-play, and I'd love to have a game to mess around with the community. And other than that, I hope everyone has a great week. Keep moving forward.
Don't be a dick. See ya.